Welcome back to Black Swan Outdoors, and today we're going to talk about the kind of some of the usage that you could have for something like this, a Shemagh or Keffiyeh. I think what I'd like to do before I talk a little bit about the Keffiyeh is kind of back up a little bit and talk first a little bit about a bandana. Bandanas have many different usage from whether you're in a city or wilderness. I used to be a wilderness guide, and I would take a bandana with me on every hike, on every canoe trip. Just found it so many different usage from it, from as a sunshade to blowing your nose to using it for first aid, filtering out water, grabbing hot pots. You know, it's just so multi-purpose and so handy to have just a small bandana with you. And in fact, I'd always carry two bandanas. It was that useful. And in fact, later on, I had started not carrying two bandanas, but a merino wool net gaiter instead, because a net gaiter can pretty much do a lot of what the bandana can do, but you can also wear this for both hot weather in the sun and then also cold weather. So it kind of paired very nicely that you could do a lot with these two items. Later on, the Shemagh had become a little bit more popularized. I guess that's coming back from the Middle East, but then also just becoming within the younger crowd. You used to just see people wearing the Shemagh or Keffiyeh, much more common in around. And in that case, I started actually exploring the different usage from this. And there's tons of videos on YouTube and tons of blogs, posts, and websites that all talk about the 101 usage for bandana and the 101 uses for the Shemagh, and there's a lot of great videos out there, better than this one obviously. Like I said, so if you really want to get into all the usage and all the different things that you can do with these things, you can check those videos out for sure. But one of the reasons why I started carrying the Keffiyeh is not just because it was more stylish, but it was a larger piece of fabric and you could do more with it. So as a guide, one of the things that was trained in wilderness as a wilderness first responder was to always have cravats with you. So I'd always have a minimum of 2 cravats, because there's so many different uses you can do with that, with a triangular bandage. You can use it, as the name implies, as a bandage. You can use it for mobilizing splints, that kind of thing. So something like a SAM splint like this, you can carry with you, and you can carry this in an urban environment or even a city environment, to be able to provide first aid. Now, one of the things that I think people often forget about is when in the tactical community, firearms community, everyone's really focused on guns and tourniquets and TCCC and all that stuff. And the reality is that most people that get hurt are going to get hurt with kind of musculoskeletal issues. So having something like a SAM splint on your person is quite handy to have, even for city dwellers. If you could imagine how many times a day do people get into car accidents. Well, car accidents create neck injuries. Neck injuries require spinal collar, clavicle collars, immobilization, broken bones, things of that nature. Sometimes really bad splints, just need to mobilize it, that kind of thing. So it's very multi-purposed, and it goes really well with a Shemagh, because a Shemagh you can just cut it in half and you have 2 triangular bandages with you. So it's just that good. Additional things like we talked about, a tourniquet. Yes, you could use this as a tourniquet with a windlass, and if you had a little stick with you, or found a stick in the ground. But most situations you're not going to need a tourniquet, but you might need a pressure bandage, or any kind of other bandage. So something like this is super handy, and super handy in conjunction with each other as well. Because just like if you're going to use one tourniquet, most likely it might be a serious enough injury that you might need 2. That's a very strong possibility. When you're dealing with other types of injuries, that's a very high injury that possibility that you'd need more bandages, or pressure bandages, or other types of bandages, or ways to mobilize people. So again, this is a great backup. It's also could be potentially some way to save weight in your pack for a very, very handy kind of primary use as well. So you know, lots of videos on this already, but since it's cotton, you can cut this down, use it as a fire starter, using it as like a survival tin like this, and essentially what you're doing is you're closing out the oxygen, putting this on the fire. There's no oxygen inside, and then that just creates the fire, char cloth to easily start a fire with, say something like the steel on the back of your knife with a rock, with like flint or chert or anything with a high Rockwell steel. So very, very handy to have, again, for that matter. One of the things that people often don't talk about, or areas to explore, is that this bandana and this Keffiyeh are fairly large, and sometimes you might find yourself in need of maybe pieces of cloth that are a size in between. And this is where the video kind of comes into play here. You have what's called your survival socks. Now, this has been commonplace in like the Russian army for a long, long time. Instead of being issued actual proper socks, they're issued bolts of cotton or wool that they can use to tie up and use for their socks. In a second, I'm going to show you how to do that, but there are some other advantages to something like this. In the previous video, we talked about how to use a fabric marker on ink that you could carry a map with. You could literally draw a escape map on this cloth, wear this in your boots, obviously with the ink side out, so you're not sweating through that, and no one would ever know. And then all you'd have to do is just walk through a creek, get the fabric wet, and the map would wash away. So very, very handy. Likewise, these can be tied around your ankles, easy enough. Walking through wet brush if you needed water to collect water. These could be used to collect food, berries, that kind of thing. If you're in that kind of situation, they could again be used as char cloth, as bandages, as all the other things that we just talked about in this video and other videos. As gauze, whatever. You could use it as a cordage, you could use it stripped down, use it as a friction saw to cut through things like packing tape, duct tape, nylon, zip ties, if you actually need it to do that too. You don't need to have Kevlar cordage to create enough friction to burn through that plastic. That's kind of a misnomer that a lot of people think get caught up on, is you have to buy this really expensive Kevlar cordage when just small strips of cloth can do the same. Same with paracord, does the same thing. So lots of different usage for something like this particular size. So if the Keffiyeh was too big, too bulky, you already had cravats with you or triangular bandages in your first aid kit, this is just not your jam. But the bandana you find to be too small, or if you're traveling a lot, you want to have an alternative pair of socks. This could give you a kind of makeshift socks as you need it. Now, the one thing that we want to talk about when we're talking about cotton and socks is that generally you want to avoid hyperphilic material. Hyperphilic meaning that it loves, Philios, Philadelphia, love. So what you want to do is you want to avoid that kind of, because it's going to absorb all the moisture from coming off your feet. You can sweat up to 2 cups of water a day off your feet alone. So all that water is going to go somewhere. It's going to perspire out, sure, but a lot of it's going to get caught in here. And then that is going to add weight and opportunity for friction, and you can get blisters. So that's why you want to avoid cotton socks. Also, cotton doesn't have as much of a cushion as, say, like wool would. Wool so it's not going to be as comfortable as well. But there is a time and place for cotton socks, and cotton socks are probably some of the most common socks that are out there on the market. Still, not everyone's doing wilderness, adventures all the time, and if you change your socks frequently, it's not as much of an issue. As long as you kind of know that you can change your socks, dry these out, put them back on. They're easily cleaned, they dry fast. It's not that much of a problem. So as long as you kind of understand why cotton kills, and how to kind of mitigate these. Would this work well in colder weather? Probably not. Would this work well in hot weather? It very well could. But again, it's a makeshift option or kind of an alternative option, not your primary option. Okay, so let's get to the process. So what you want to do is take your fabric, and the fabric is about, I don't know, 17 inches or so as a square, and I'm going to put my foot right in here, and then I'm going to take one side of the cloth. I'm going to cover one side of my foot. I'm going to take the other side and cover the other side of my foot right here. All right, and then I'm just going to wrap it. So I'll put the camera down, just like so. And you can kind of tuck it in just like that. Now, that's an easy, quick wrap. There's other ways of wrapping. There's other ways of wrapping it. You can get longer pieces of cloth, get more elaborate, go all the way up your leg if you needed to. Basically, once you get your shoe on, it secures the wrapping totally in place. You don't have to worry about it obviously being undone, and you can move about your business just as with you would with regular socks. So again, this is just the survival sock, or escape and evasion sock, whatever you want to call it. Gives you that ability to keep your feet happy, and happy feet make for happy trails. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, like and subscribe. And if you like this content, check me out on Instagram as well. We have a Patreon that you can read more in-depth information or just support the channel. Thank you.